Hey guys, Clay Harkey from Twisted Arrow Goods here. Today I'm going to show you how to stitch the card wallet, simple card wallet. In your kit you should have gotten 3 pieces of leather, the back and the 2 card pieces. And you should have gotten some thread, a piece of canvas, and 2 stitching needles. If you don't have that, message us and we'll get it sent over to you. And a piece of sandpaper, but I don't have a piece. I'm just going to use this sanding file. You can use a fingernail file, that works too, and if you want something like this you can get it at your local Tandy or just your local craft shop. And then some other things you're going to need for this build is some water and a lighter and a pair of scissors. And if you have those things, then you're good to go. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to clean off the edges of the card wallet, and to do that we're going to use the sandpaper. So you'll have a piece of sandpaper, but I'm just going to use this guy, and we're just going to sand off all of the burnt edges because this was cut with a laser, and the laser leaves some burnt lines on the edges. And once you get it how you like it, remember this is your wallet, so you do whatever you want with it. Go on to the next one. I find if you go in one direction with your sandpaper, it kind of helps clean it up a little easier and makes a really nice clean edge. So now we've got 2 clean edges. Now what we're going to do, we're going to dip our finger in the water, and we're just going to rub some water on the edge of the leather. We're going to do one panel at a time. Once you get that water on there, you can let it sit for just a few seconds and take your piece of canvas, and you're just going to rub the edge of the leather with the canvas. You don't have to push hard. And what you're aiming for is a nice shine on the edge. And we're going to do that to both sides. And now you have a nice clean edge on the pockets. Now if you have leather tools at home, a burnisher, you can use a burnisher to do that, and you can also, before you clean it up, you can use an edging tool to clean up that edge a little bit better to make it nice and really pretty. But for the sake of this video, these look pretty darn good. Okay. Now what we're going to do is all your holes are going to be uniform on your wallet, so it really doesn't matter which one you put where, but you're going to do rough side to rough side so that the clean side is showing up on both like that. Now if you have any of these paper clips like this, these work really well to hold the leather in place. If you've got like clothespins, or if you've got some Elmer's glue and you have some time to wait, you can always glue up the edges, or any type of glue really, to put around the edges, and then you can glue it together. That's the way we make our wallets, is with a really nice glue. But if you don't have it, not a big deal. And what we're going to do is we're going to put this on the edge, and we're just going to put a little clothespin. Oh, what the heck, we might as well just go ahead and do 2. And just kind of make sure that your holes are as lined up as they can be. Now, there's lots of different methods to actually starting your saddle stitch. One would be to actually use a stitching pony. If you have one, that's the best way to go. If you don't, there's other things you can do, like taking a pair of tongs, put some rubber bands around it so it has a little bit more of it's a little bit tighter, and you can just slide this over your leather piece, and then just put this between your legs, and you can stitch that way. Just kind of helps having a third hand when it comes to stitching. Or if you are a woodworker or whatnot and you've got some clamps lying around, you can also do the same thing with this. And we've also kind of figured out this way where, take a block of wood or something similar, and what you're going to do is put one clamp right up against the edge and then clamp that clamp to the block of wood. So let me turn this around to show you. So you're just going to clamp one clamp to the other, and this is going to sit like that. And this is going to give you that, that third hand I was talking about when it comes to stitching. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our wallet into the clamp it down. So I've got a third hand now, and hopefully this is enough weight to kind of hold myself. And then we're going to go into stitching the wallet. Now your piece of leather, your piece of string you have, so you're going to have a longer piece. You can cut it in half because we're going to do one side and then do the other. And the reason why you have 2 needles is because we're going to saddle stitch, and saddle stitching requires 2 needles for a good clean stitch. So you're just going to put your thread through each needle, one on one side, one on the other. If you want, you can lock your stitch by pushing the needle through the end of the end of the thread and pulling it over, then pulling it tight. That way your needle doesn't come off the thread when you're stitching. It's a real booger whenever you're trying to stitch these things and the thread comes off the needle and you're continually having to rethread your needle. So it's a good little trick. Just be careful because it does add a little bit of extra girth to your needle at the end. So it'll be kind of harder to push it through the hole, but it should be fine. Okay, so what we're going to do is you'll notice that there's one hole that does not line up with the pocket. That is the hole that is going to hold down the pocket. So what we're going to do is we're going to back stitch two stitches, and then we're going to stitch around the whole thing and then back stitch 2 to make it uniform. And to do so, we're going to start with the third hole, stick your needle through both sides, and you're going to pull it even. Okay? Most people are right-handed, so we're going to start with our right hand. We're going to stick it through the right side hole and pull that thread all the way through. Hold it over the other thread, and then put your left-handed needle in that same hole. Switch hands and pull it tight. All right, so we're going to do that one more time. We're going to push it through the right side first, over the other thread, your left thread, and then put your left needle through, switch hands, and pull it tight. And that's your 2 back stitches. Now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch towards us and go all the way around the wallet the same way. So we're going to start with our right hand, and to keep it from poking through the thread, make sure that you don't poke it through the thread, because if you poke it through the thread, it messes with pulling it tight, and it can also it's just bad news. So if you do put it through the thread, undo your needle and redo it to keep it nice and clean. So we did our first one. We did our second one right now. Not used to stitching with this thing. Switch hands, and there you have it. So now we're going to continue to stitch all the way around the wallet, starting with our right hand, and then our left hand, switching. And once you get to the end of one side, loosen your clamp. switch sides, and then tighten it back up. So we don't need these anymore because we've already got one side in and we've got the clamp on the large side. So we're just going to continue to stitch. Right hand, left hand, switch. Right hand, left hand, switch. Remember, this is your wallet, so you can do whatever you want. If you want to do a different type of stitch, go for it. You can use, you can stitch it twice, use two different types of thread, and have, two stitches at the same through the same holes. You can use three. I've seen some pretty wild wallets out there. Red, white, and blue stitching, or whatever. But just for this video, we're just going to stick with your basic brown. But feel free to use whatever you want. Okay, we finished that side. So we're going to flip this wallet over. Do this last side. Just try to think like a machine while you're stitching. The more you do it the exact same way every single time, the better your stitch is going to look. Okay, now we're getting to our last hole. So we're going to put it through, pull it tight, and now we're going to back stitch two. So we're going to stitch away from us. We're going to go through that same hole with our right hand, and then we're going to stitch with our left hand. Pull it tight. Right hand, left hand. Now we've done two back stitches. So what you're going to do is pull out your scissors. These are sewing scissors, but regular scissors work just fine. And you're going to cut this off, cut your thread off. You're going to leave a little bit hanging over, not a lot, but a little bit. And then you're going to take your lighter. Since this is waxed nylon thread, it's not going to catch fire. It's going to melt, which is what we want it to do. We're going to do one side, kind of push that down, do the other side, and push that down. And that is how you stitch. So when you're done, you should have a really nice, clean stitch on both sides. If you don't like the way you did it, no big deal. Pull it apart and start over. If you see that you're starting to get a little bit off on your stitches as you're going, just undo it then and keep going all the way around to make sure you have a nice, even stitch. And now we're just going to do the other side. The exact same way. Remember, your thread's going to be long enough in your kit where you don't have to cut more. And this lock stitch, if you just snip your thread next to the hole, that old thread will just come right out. If you're having trouble getting your thread to go through the needle, just take your finger and your thumb and just push on that to flatten it out, and it should slide through that little hole a lot easier. And then we're going to burn that thread again on both sides. Now, if you like the way it looks, then you're done. You can start putting your cards in there. Remember that leather stretches, so when you first start putting cards in there, it's going to be a little stiff. But as you use it, it'll start getting more worn in. Also, this natural veg tan that we use is belly leather. So as you use it, and the oils from your skins and just being in the sunlight and whatnot is going to patina this leather. It's going to get darker and darker. It's just going to become yours, and it'll be really great. Now, if you don't think you're done, you're not satisfied with your edges, take that piece of sandpaper. If you have some really big overlap and you have an X-Acto knife, what you can do is trim up your edges. But if you don't have an X-Acto knife, don't worry about it. Not a big deal. I just happen to have one. And I like my edges to be very clean, so I'm just going to go ahead and give it a little cleanup. Okay. Once you get both sides of the leather pretty flat with one another, then you can take your sandpaper or your sanding file, and we're just going to sand away all the burn. Okay. Now we're going to do what we did with the pockets. We're going to take some water on our finger, and we're just going to put it on the edge. You don't want to oversaturate it, but you definitely want to get some water on there. I like to do 2 sides at a time. So we're going to do this side and this side. Take your piece of canvas and just rub the edge. And there you have it. Nice shiny edges. And you are done with your wallet. Thanks for watching, and hope you enjoy your wallet. Thanks.